Spring can automatically resolve dependencies using auto-wiring. Spring offers auto-wiring feature that helps cut down the amount of XML configuration that developers have to write. So that is what I had shown you, right? That line will not be there once we implement auto-wiring. Spring offers following types of auto-wiring. So we can auto-wire by using name, by using type, and by using constructor. Okay, we'll see one by one. Auto-wiring by name. Spring container looks at the beans on which auto-wire attribute is set to by name in the XML configuration file based on the name of a property. A bean with that same name will be injected into this property if it exists. Okay, so what does it mean? We will understand about these students in the next slide because it has the XML configuration file with the relevant information. Don't worry at this moment. See, I have a hostel class and a student class. So here I have reference of hostel. So usually we know that we need to write a bean for hostel and we need to write a bean for student and we need to refer in what we call we have to refer the hostel bean for this hostel. That we know by using ref attribute. But if you see here, I supplied value for name, I supplied value for ID, but I ignored hostel completely. See, I do not see the property with respect to hostel at all for the bean for the class student. See here, I had written for only two properties and hostel two properties, because if you see hostel I have two properties, for those I set the values. Student, it has three properties, but I had set the values for name and ID, but I completely ignored hostel. Why? If you come here, it says auto-wire by name. Auto-wire by name. If you see, ID is hostel here, property is hostel here. So it is going with the property name. It is going with the property name. If it finds any bean with the same property name, then it will go for it. That's it. See, I no need to write that dependency for student bean at all, just because of auto-wire equal to by name. So everything else remains same. See, nothing changed for our test class. Next, I don't want to write this line. That's it. That is my requirement. It should be auto-wired. It should automatically inject the specific value for this property based on either by name or by ID or by name or by type or by constructor argument. Okay. This injection has to happen automatically without writing this mapping information. So that is my ultimate goal. That is my ultimate goal. So I want to remove this line and I want to write something like this. Auto-wire by using either name or type. So when I say name, it will search for a bean with ID equal to this name. What is that? I have a bean with ID this. So then I can remove this. Got it? Then I can remove this. So this is the whole funda behind that example. That means I am just decreasing the amount of effort that has to be put by the developer in writing the XML. It should automatically wire with the dependent beans. So that is the ultimate goal of this session. Okay. Next, go to the slide. Yeah. So here we understood we have two classes, student and hostel, and we understood application context.xml looks something like this, where we are writing Autowire, okay, and this remains same. Okay, now we will see an example on the same. Module 2, we have student and hostel. See, these many tabs are open, right? These many files are open, right? So I want to close all of them in one shot. So the shortcut for Eclipse shortcut is Control Shift W. See, all the opened files were closed. Control Shift W. Student class looks something like this, which has a reference to hostel, and with the here we are talking about constructor injection. No problem, I'll comment this out. Okay, next. Yeah, how it looks now, with the three properties and setter and getter methods. That's it. Okay, and go to hostel. It remains same. Go to beans2.xml. So far we were in beans.xml, which corresponds to module 1, and module 2 we are going with beans2.xml. This is just for readability purpose. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay. So what I will do, I will comment this piece of code, and I will see here, enable this piece of code to explain Autowire by name. So let me enable this. Okay. See now, here hostel, for the class hostel I am writing a bean with the ID hostel and with the two properties, hostel name and city, and the values that I passed for hostel name and city are Hyderabad famous hostel and Hyderabad. And for bean, for the class student, I am passing only two properties for name and ID. It has the third property hostel, but I am not passing any value, or I am not mapping any bean for that property. Why? Because I explicitly said that boss go with hostel. See, in student the property name is what? Hostel. So in that case, search with a bean whose ID is hostel and map with it. That can be done automatically by this. So does this XML file has any bean with ID hostel? Yes, it has. Then it should work. That means the mapping part is extracted away from XML, and it is made automatic by this. Go to test. So this is same again. So here I am going with beans2.xml. This is the only change. I am trying to get a bean with ID student. As it returns student, I am typecasting it. So now I got a student instance on which I am firing toString just to get the information of it. Okay. So forget about this for some time. Okay, now run this program. See here, student name is Pramod and ID is Param12345 and hostel details from where these were injected. These were injected because of Autowire by name. Autowire by name. So we are going to the next level. We are going to the next level. Any question on this? Okay. So as there are no questions, Vijay says it's crystal clear. Thank you, Vijay. Next. Now, auto wiring by type. Auto wiring by type, not by name. So type refers to the class type. For example, if it is employee, type is employee. If it is book, it is book. So like that, now it should not depend on the property name rather than the property of type. So here in this example, the type refers to hostel, this hostel. So this is property name and this is property type. Now it has to wire based on the type available. It has to wire based on the type available. So in this case, how it behaves. By type specifies auto wiring by property type, not by name. Spring container reads the XML configuration file and for the beans on which AutoWire attribute is set to by type, it finds and inject that bean according to type match. So what we are trying to convey from these two lines is, see here, see now this is capital H. We made it intentionally to tell you guys that it is not the property name we are referring because the property name is small h there. Okay. So now this on based on the name, it will not work. So that we ensured by giving capital H here. Next, but how still it is able to work? Because I said AutoWire by type. So the property hostel is of type hostel. What am I saying? The property hostel is of type hostel. So it will find for a bean whose type is hostel. So fortunately it found a bean whose class is of type hostel. That's it. It will inject it. It will inject it. How? If you see, it remains same. It remains same. Okay. Next. Sorry. Yeah. Till this point only. Yeah. Go to beans2.xml and instead of by name, we should have by type. I'm commenting this piece of code. And let me uncomment this piece of code. Okay. See here. See the ID I gave 5-star hostel, 5-star hostel. Okay. And by type I said, but if you go to student class, how to go to student class from XML? Just click on that class name and F3. It will take you there. So now I am in the student class. The property name is hostel. Okay. Come back. But I do not have a respective property, not even respective bean with the same property name, because it is 5-star hostel, but still it will work. Why? Because I am auto wiring by type. So what is the type it is looking for? A bean with the type hostel. Yes, it found. Then it will match it. It will match it. See, I save it, go to test and execute it. See, your client program will not change because we are doing it at configuration level. Any questions on this? Got the difference between by name and by type? Name refers to property name. Type refers to property type. That's it. Okay. So as there are no questions, let me go to the next slide. Auto-wiring by constructor. This is third way to achieve the same. If a bean is set to auto-wire by constructor in configuration file, then Spring container tries to match and wire its constructor argument with exactly one of the beans whose type matches with the type of constructor argument. So again, this is by type but at constructor level. By type but at constructor level. So for that, what I will be doing is I'll just modify this. Let me enable this and let me disable all my set. Now I want to go with constructor injection. You can have your setter methods also, but I just wanted to differentiate between constructor and setter injection. Now I have a constructor with name, ID and hostel. That's it. No changes made to hostel. Come back to beans. Now we will be commenting this out. Let us uncomment this piece of code. Now see. If you see here, again 5-star hotel, sorry 5-star hostel, and this is hostel, and I am passing the values for only hostel and city because it does not contain anything else. And for bean of type student, instead of property, I am using constructor arg because I am using constructor injection here, and I am ignoring the third type, that is for hostel. So again, the ID is 5-star hostel, but how it will work because of constructor auto-wiring by constructor, but it will go with again by type, but at a constructor injection level. Okay, so let me save this and go to test, execute it. Nothing changed, right? So again the program is working as expected. So let me repeat this again. 3 things I will repeat. We have by ID, then by type and constructor. 3 things. By ID, sorry, by name, by type and constructor. By name is most bother about the property name. By type is most bother about setter injection plus property type. Constructor most bothers about constructor injection plus by type. That's it. Yeah. So again, this is homework for all of you guys. Loading multiple bean configuration files. Generally, in a Spring-based application, we have multiple bean configuration files. It's a good practice to define your beans in different XML file rather than defining all beans in one XML file. One question that comes to mind is how we will load multiple bean configuration files. So we will write a parent, that is main.xml, and we will import all the other XML files by using an import tag as shown here. I am importing a resource. So that refers to the path to the respective XML file. So as I have these many XML files and these are the paths. So I am referring to all those XMLs in one main.xml file, and I will supply this one main.xml file to whom? The application context. So this is one way of achieving that, and the other way is, if you see here, it takes an array also. It takes an array also. So this is also one of the way to go for it. Got it? So either we can load multiple configuration files in this way or in the other way suggested. So I am giving this also as homework to all of you. I am skipping it intentionally as there is nothing rocket science in this example. Next, bean definition inheritance. Bean definition inheritance. A child bean definition inherits configuration data from a parent definition. So it is nothing but the inheritance that you know. That's it. Inheritance that you know. Parent-child relationship. Child can acquire the properties of parent. That's it. So the child definition can override some values or add others as needed. What does it mean? Child can have its own properties and it acquires the values assigned to the properties for the parent, but again it is up to child whether to go with the values of the parent or give some specialized values to the parent properties. So that is what this override some values refers to. Using parent, a child bean definition can save a lot of typing that developers have to do otherwise. So what does it mean? You no need to redefine those properties in parent and child. Rather, if you define it in parent, it will be acquired by the child if you establish boss. This is my parent relationship with the child. Okay, so how we will do that? See here, this example I was not convinced, so I have another example. This is very very basic example and it does not carry any value, so I'm not going with this. So parent-child relationship, I have book as a parent and e-book, electronic book, as the child. Okay, it could be a paper book or it could be a e-book. So I have an e-book, electronic book. It is a child which extends parent, that is a book. Okay, so what book contains? Book contains these many properties. These many properties. So whether it is an electronic book or paper book, name of the book, author of the book, number of pages and the cost would be same. Okay, that is why this is the parent. And the properties specific to ebook are size in MB. Size in MB. Okay, so I have setter methods for all these 4 properties along with the toString, and I have setter methods for this property along with toString. That's it. Now I could see parent and child relationship, some meaningful parent and child relationship in this example. Okay, then how this looks? So I'm deleting this. Then how this looks? Book co.edureka.module2.book, and I gave values to all the 4 properties of the parent book. Okay, by default, by the theory of inheritance, all these are available to ebook. All these are available to ebook. Okay, so in that case, go to beans2.xml. So all these values, whether you write it or not, will be available to ebook, will be available to ebook. Okay, so ebook. Now I am saying parent as book, parent as book. Then I had defined only size in MB for ebook. Okay, then when I create an instance of ebook, that means what I will do is I will check for this ID in my test.java. See here, see ebook. Okay, and it is written, it will return an instance of ebook. Then if you say book.toString, it will return what? Everything, all the 5 properties. See, ebook size in MB is 25.2, and what book contains? Book contains all this information. Why? Because I established some parent-child relationship in beans. The parent-child relationship in beans. Okay, understood? There no need to be inheritance relationship established also. For example, yeah, this is coming because of inheritance relationship. Okay, fine. Got this point? Any questions on this inheritance? What is parent and all? Yeah, Vijay says yes. It is very, if you feel it is hard, just go with this example. It is very easy. See here, for it has only one class father, and it has father, and now the other bean, there is no class defined for it. See, there is no class defined for it, but you are treating it as a parent, and it has a father. That means it is referring to this. That means first name and last name both are available to this child bean, but again you are overriding the value of first name by Shane. So that is what this slide talks about. Okay, so next topic. Yeah, coding to interfaces. When using Spring for dependency injection, it's a good practice to use interfaces for referencing dependencies. So what it means? So for example, in our earlier example, assume I have a student class and I have two kinds of hostels. One is 5-star hostel and the second one is 3-star hostel. But both the hostels are implementing an interface called hostel. So here do not write either 5-star hostel or 3-star hostel, rather write hostel, because it is a reference which can accommodate either it is a 3-star hostel or a 5-star hostel. That is what the meaning of this slide. Go with the interfaces rather than the implementations, because the implementation may vary, but if you refer it with the interface, that is super interface, then it can accommodate any of its implementations. That is what the meaning of this slide. Next, annotation based container configuration. So far whatever we had seen, that is XML based configuration. XML based configuration. Now we would be seeing how to configure everything using annotations. So here comes the again chicken problem. People ask whether this is good or that is good. Is it XML configuration is good or annotation configuration is good? Both have their own advantages as well as disadvantages. Okay, we will understand that stuff better when we develop more. When we develop more. Annotation based container configuration. So now we will be adding this XML namespace with respect to the context. In order to your annotations work, the container has to know the context related to all your annotations. So this line was missing in other XML. If you see beans2.xml, do we have that context? See, XML namespace, I have it for only beans, not for context. So that we need to add. I had added it. See, XML namespace context this. Okay, that is the only change with respect to container. But how to add it? Let me create a new XML configuration or bean configuration XML for second application of dummy. Next, see here, you can select the required namespaces from here. So I want beans. So it will ask you which. So we had chosen 4.1.4 for our bean total jars, right? So I'm going with this, and we have something called context here. So I will use the same 4.1. Finish. See, you can see the context added. You can see the context added. Got it? So this is how we will create we will add that context information to our XML file. Any questions on adding this context to our XML file? Yeah. Okay. Next. What is this line? Context colon annotation hyphen config. It tells that, boss, I'll be using annotation based configuration. So IOC container, I request you to please consider those configurations. So that is said by this line. So I would be using annotation driven configuration also along with my XML based configuration. So I request you to consider those along with the XML configuration. That is said by this context colon annotation hyphen config. If you miss to add this line, though you write your annotations, but they will not work because your IOC engine is not aware of those until unless you write this line. Okay, so it should be the first line of your configuration file after beans. Okay, first annotation we will check for is @value annotation. So @value annotation defined in JSR 330. So JSR, yesterday also I gave some hint on JSR 250 and 330, right? So JSR 330, JSR stands for Java Specification Request, and that is 330, in which used to inject string values into members of a bean. Usually we use @value annotation to provide default value to beans properties. For example, by default it has to take John Doe for name and 111 for ID. So whether I set it in the bean definition or not. So for example, if you see student1, did I write these two properties? No. But still, if you create an object for this bean ID, it will have John Doe and 111 as the result. Why? Because at the rate value specifies that these are the default values for the associated properties. Default values for the associated properties. But when you override or explicitly write them, what does it mean? You are overriding the default value. You are overriding the default value. If you come here, I had created an object for student 1 and student 2, and when you try to see the IDs, you could see the difference. Got it? Okay, before going next. Yeah, see here, student with annotations. So for ID, I'm taking this as the default value. For name, I'm taking this as the default value. And if you go to beans with context added, see here, the context is added, and you can see this. Student 1 without any property defined. Student 2 with one property defined. And how it behaves? If you go to test annotation beans, you could see I had created two objects, student 1 and student 2, from bean ID student 1 and student 2. It should populate with two default values. It should populate with one default value and one overridden value. Okay. If you run this, you will come to know. See, this is the default value, this is default value, and this is default value, this is the overridden value. So how these are working? Because we set the container that please consider all my annotations while you prepare your engine. So where is that? Where is that line of code? This context colon annotation hyphen config. This will ensure that container will be aware of all your annotations. Got it? Next. Next, at the rate required. This is the second annotation that we are going to learn today. This annotation simply indicates that the affected bean property must be populated at configuration time through an explicit property value in a bean definition or through autowiring. The method could be either autowiring or explicitly you set the property, but it should have the value supplied to that property. Otherwise, bean initialization will not happen. When we add at the rate required, it is something like mandatory field. It is something like mandatory field, because though your student class has two properties, but when you ignore, okay, not this. Though your student property has two properties, but for the first student one, when you ignored both the properties, still it accepted. Why? There was no mandatory condition is there on the values to be set for these properties. That is why there is no exception. But see, now I have int value and I have a setter method for that, and I am adding a required annotation on it. And go to beans with context added .xml and see how my required annotation looks like. How it looks like? See, I am setting the value attribute, but if you ignore it, what happens? Okay. Now I am not supplying any value. I am not supplying any value for my required annotation class. Attribute is value. I am not giving any value. But here I said the setter method as required. That means I am saying that the property value is required, but you did not set. What happens? Go to test annotation beans and see now. bean initialization fails. Bean initialization exception. Why? Property value is required for bean required annotations which you did not set. That is what the meaning of it. So how I can rectify it by my own? Go to beans with context added and just uncomment this. What I mean by that? Pass the value for the property value. Then I'm passing 123. If you go back to your program, that is test annotation based, for this, now you will find it's working. Why? Because when it qualified itself as required and when you pass the information, there is no problem at all, right? So that is why it is working. So now, did you understand what is required and how it will influence the bean initialization? Any questions on that? Yeah, Vijay says clear. Hope everything is clear on this. Otherwise, let me know. I will explain again. Yeah, the problem with these kind of courses, like this is a kind of crash course, right? You are learning entire Spring in 8 into 3. I'm very poor at mathematics, but still I'll try. 24. So you are trying to learn total Spring with so many advanced topics in 24 hours. But usually people take 2.5 months into 1.5 hours. So that is the time period people dedicate for Spring framework with all these concepts. So this is a kind of crash course. So many concepts we are covering in a day. So it will be confusing until you try it by your own. The best part from this course is you have a week time to practice the 2-day session. But if you do not practice from module 3 and 4, I will increase my speed much more. So you need to be very clear about all the concepts that we covered so far. Okay. Next. Yeah. Auto-wide. Now the annotation is auto-wide. We have seen auto-wide for bean definition, right? Now we will do it using annotations. You can also apply the annotation to methods with arbitrary name and or multiple arguments. You can apply @autowired to constructors and fields also. By default, auto-wiring fails whenever 0 candidate beans are available. That means you are saying auto-wired but the respective bean is not available, then it fails. The default behavior is to treat annotated methods, constructors and the fields as indicating required dependencies. This behavior can be changed as demonstrated below. @autowired of required equal to false. Because auto-wiring by type may lead to multiple candidates. See, multiple candidates. That means we have seen 5-star and 3-star example, right? So how can we get rid of that problem? We will see. It is often necessary to have more control over the selection process. More control over the selection process. One way to accomplish this is with the Spring's qualifier annotation. So when I'm trying to auto-wire it by type, what happens? There might be a possibility of more than one type can be qualified for it. We had seen that exception, right? So then I can say that though it has more than one bean associated with the same type, but I am looking for this, that we will explicitly